listen to our dad on the Cressman podcast.
With me today, Brad Belanger of Homestead Entertainment. He manages Dustin, Lynch, Sam Hunt, and other artists, which we'll talk about. Brad, you are one of the most creative, charismatic, intellectual, outside the box, offense over defense playing individuals I have ever met. Hopefully, by the way, you don't mind receiving compliments as well. But it's just such a pleasure to have you on, man.
Jim, good to see you again, my friend. I think our energies attracted the first time we met with we both kind of saw that we were folks who are working to sit still and get going. So always good to see your face, man. I think Gary Vee was like one of our first conversations. Huh?
That's right. That's right.
Talking about business and momentum and growth and all those things.
Yeah, it's interesting. We connected on a bunch of different levels. I know you're a fan of visionaries, hence Gary Vee. I know that historically speaking, you admire Teddy Roosevelt, some of his foresight. And I wanted to start this podcast off. I was reading an excerpt from Man in the Arena the other day. I was reading that speech of Roosevelt's, and there was a line in here that made me think of you. And I'll just read it, and then you tell me how it resonates with you.
Come on.
If he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat.
Yeah. I mean, this past year, I think has been a real good example of that. But, I think for me and my family, it goes back to my dad kind of always, I've got two older brothers. We grew up playing a lot of sports and just a lot of competition around the house. And my dad just kind of always instilled in us to leave it all on the field was the line, to go hard and give it everything. And then here's the deal. If you lose, man, you sleep good at night. I got beat or I lost that. That wasn't for me. But there's nothing worse in the world for me than it's not losing. I don't mind losing. It's losing and knowing that I could have given more. I could have tried harder. I could have motivated the team a little bit more. So it gets obsessive sometimes, but I think for people like Teddy and you and me and a lot of other people in this world, it's just that. It's that piece of going, I gave it my all.
Yeah. And there's something to be said for that. One of the things that really precedes you in this business in terms of your reputation is your work ethic. And the fact that you're also a disruptor. I said it in the intro, you think outside the box, offense over defense. What do you think Nashville is doing, in your estimation, better than the industry was doing 5 years ago, and as it pertains to doing the right thing intentionally for the artists that they are in partnership with? What do you think is going better than it was, say, 5 years ago in the Nashville scene?
Oh, gosh. I think more than anything, it's just a more efficient system every year. I think there's still the same amount of people, same amount of roadblocks sometimes. But for the initial team of creators, which in my world starts with guys like Sam and Dustin, writing with producers like Zach Crowell and other guys in this town, getting those songs going, getting them recorded, getting them put together in a group. Once that's created, the ability to take that with artwork, video, a brand, a message, and one or two people that know what they're doing, and getting that out to a large amount of people, it's never been cheaper to do. And it's never been easier for the initial core group of people that kind of came up with it to keep their hands on it the whole way. And I love that. I really love that we don't have to give it away anymore, or let it go to another part of the system that it took to get it out there to the mass audience. Now we can just kind of upload it.
Yeah, you can access the consumer base in a much more direct manner than before. Now, one thing you've also done really unique that I really admire, and I replicate the same type of system up here, is you build out a joint venture partnership with your artists. Essentially, you create a label for an artist that you manage. Then you go to the major labels and you discuss what services you would like to see from them. Now, as I understand it, and for people who are listening, probably the most beneficial aspect of that type of partnership is A, the artist retains ownership of the master, and B, you are able to utilize the major labels for their most potent strengths,
Sure.
rather than sort of signing it all away and leaving it up to their mercy.
I think those partnerships are key. And, for us, not all of our deals are like that. We have some more traditional deals, and with some of the new artists, we've got some more advanced deals, and the labels are eager to get into these, and they understand it's a different business. It's a singles business and not a record business. But I think one of the key things is, it goes back to what we were just saying, is we're able to partner with a label, and when they see not every management company might be able to shoot the music video and edit things and make record covers and really run a lot of the creative stuff. And so when they see that we're a team that's had success in the past, but that we can get an artist, and that we're involved with Zach Krause, my best friend, who's produced all the Sam stuff, and Dustin, and this new kid Connor, so that they know we have a little insulated circle that can make a product.
And you have a track record.
Yes, with success. And the great thing is, and one of my teammates, Chelsea down here, she always laughs. We get a lot of yeses because we come in with a lot of times the full idea, and then we ask for a third of the budget. So they don't have to do anything, no meetings, we'll deliver it. And you know what? We want to do it for a third of what you usually spend, because in the end, it's the artist's money, it's recoupable. We understand it's all just a loan. And if we get the ability to do it ourselves and have fun and do it as a team, like we used to do, like we like to do it, we've learned that involves a small team, and that's cheap. The more money we spend, you just naturally get more people involved, and it starts losing that special equation that's been the core to it. So for all the artists, it's like we figure out exactly how much we need. We come up with the idea. And so when we cover that, that takes a lot of burden off the labels who are working with other acts and other teams that need a little bit more help in that department. But then we lean on them for a million other things, from radio to finances and relationships and award shows and all those kind of things.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, where do you think the major labels bring the most value these days to someone in your shoes and the artists that you work with?
I think that the major labels are basically like they're walking around with a big can of gasoline, and they might not be amazing at starting those little fires, because you got to spend all day working and getting the materials together and starting that little flame, and it's inefficient. But when you get something going, there's always the outlier stories we hear of so and so who owned it all himself and they did it all themselves. That's such a rare thing. I think it's getting that fire going and getting that flame going, and then getting those labels to come in and pour a bunch of gas on it. And for me as a manager, I don't want to go to a label. I don't want to go to Mike Dungan or Scott Burchett or anybody in this town without a fire going, without something going that they can understand what they're investing in. And so for us, it just benefits to get it going on our side. So then we have something to sell them. I can bring it to them and say, hey, this is what we got. Here's his bio. Here's the story. Here's photos of her. Here's their backstory. Here's the music. Here's what we want to do in the next 15 to 18 months. And this is the kind of money we would think about doing it for. So I don't know, it's just a little easier.
That process that you're describing, though, that takes a lot of vision, and part and parcel to the vision, it takes certainty, right? And to a degree, some leadership and some ability to enthusiastically create more evangelists, for lack of a better term, who are going to go out, sing the praises of the artist in the marketplace. How do you effectively develop such a great vision for an artist and their brand? Like, where does that come from in you?
I don't think it comes from in me by any means. It only really works when it comes from the artist. And so my goal for, let's say, I was lucky. My Sam Hunt story of how I met him and how we started working together it's been told, and it was so fun, and it was really a blessing and one of those magic moments. But like taking on an artist like Dustin, who had been going for 6 or 7 years, that was just a mutual respect. that we both were friends already. We respected our abilities. We knew we could trust each other, and we jumped right into business. But the three other acts we have on our roster who are young acts that we've developed over the years, like Connor Smith being an example, 4 years we've had him, signed him when he was 16. It's just about building an environment where these young, talented artists can trust the process, which is nobody cares about you, nobody knows you, nobody's waiting for you to put anything out, nobody's waiting for you to play a show. So why don't you just sit here and work on it? And really be patient. And every time they bring me a story about somebody that popped in 2 months in this town, I remind them that we're in the business of long term. No interest in a one single popping or a good year for a look on something. I want headlining arena, stadium, amphitheater acts. And so for us, it's just about setting an environment of like, let's just keep working on this. And when something pops up that is undeniable, we'll all know we're ready for it. But when myself or Zach or some of the other people that are on our team that are a little bit more experienced, more our age, can look at these young people and say, hey, that's really, really good, but it's not great. And you need 6 greats or 7 greats before we even get out of the gate. And then next 2 months later, oh, those songs are good, but they're not great. Then when they finally get there and you go, hey, man, you got a couple great songs, they're ready. And so for us, it's just about building that environment, but more importantly, keeping them motivated while not selling them short. Letting them know they can't jump on anything right away.
Playing for legacy is a whole different game. I totally hear you there. And not only keeping them motivated, but I would imagine keeping them focused, because one component of this business that I've always struggled in as a manager is artists have a desire to deploy their time across a broad array of passions.
Sure.
And it's like, what can we do on digital? What can we do? It's like, what we need are hits. That's the foundation of everything.
Sure.
And I know you've preached that a lot too. It's like, it doesn't matter what you're doing in terms of a cover series on your Instagram page. If no one gives a shit to pull $25 out of their pocket, come hear you sing.
Yep. And we just talked this morning with some of the younger employees I got down here. And this past weekend, my wife and I had a little dinner party. And when we were sitting out by the fire, we had some drinks, and then we went downstairs in our little theater room. We got a big TV and stereo, and we cut the lights out. We were all standing with drinks. And we each got to go on YouTube and pick 2 live songs on YouTube from anybody that you wanted to share with the group. And we watched some Coldplay live songs in Paris. We watched some U2 in Chicago in 2001, Queen at Wembley. And as I was talking to these young folks down here, they were saying like, boy, there's not a lot of those kind of bands. Those bands that can play for 25 to 75,000 people and really bring everybody to a religious moment where people are willing to go put through the headache of parking and the tickets and all of it. And we named probably 6 or 7, maybe 8 of the true ones. And
most of those artists probably broke in the 80s or 90s.
Oh, it was U2, Springsteen. Absolutely. Yeah. But they're still there. I mean, I think that there's always going to be a want and need for that. And after COVID, even more. But it's that talk, even around the office, of that's the type of artist that we're interested in working with. That's the goal. And if we got to do some TikTok and some acoustic cover sessions on the road, we're happy to do it, and it's fine. But it's keeping everybody focused on that end goal.
Right. How do you think the proliferation of access to the marketplace, I mean, there's benefits and detriments to it, right? Like, there isn't the sort of one-size-fits-all star system in place that there was in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. And as a result, it's harder to build bands up to the arena level who aren't accepted by the mainstream. That being said, you've got a lot of artists who are able to still go out and tour amphitheaters, who can still break and build some great legacies, sell out some arenas. But what do you see the trend in the next decade or so in terms of as artists begin to proliferate the marketplace and their audience sizes might get smaller overall, they're less and less macro, but there's more artists. I mean, do you think we're going to see stadium level superstars in 25 years?
I do, and I'll tell you why. Because I think that there's going to be, there already is a real split in our industry. That there's an entire group of genres, and really it dominates a ton of the charts of acts that are not predominantly live acts. They're studio, they're video, they're award show. They're produced acts in every aspect, from the visuals to the video, uh, but they're not built to go out and try to do 65 hard ticket dates with openers in the Live Nation system, that kind of thing. And that's fine. They can make a lot of money. If you own the masters, you understand how it is. If you can record a song for 15 grand and own 50% of the master and get 450 million streams, you're going to make some money, and that's good. That's their revenue. That's how they're built. We're built still in that touring business, and I think that's never going to go away because COVID is kind of proving it. Look, let's go back to like the office setup, these Zoom things right here. A lot of people I know that I work with in business, they're still not allowed to go to work, and they're still on these things all day long from their apartments. And we've been back in the office for a while, but there's such, in my business, in the way that we run our business, there's something about being in the room together. It's getting the business done, and then it's bullshitting, and it's talking, and it's pulling up things on the phone. Oh, did you see this? Oh, look at this. Oh, cool. So much comes out of that you can't put in your calendar. And it's why people will get back into offices. If you don't have to, there's going to be some industries that will adjust, but most people are going to want to get back and collaborate with people. And I think just like that, they're going to want to go see live concerts. I've always said that there's basically nowadays 3 places that people gather really close. And it's church, sports, and concerts. Sports is 50-50. It's kind of sports. You're one message. Concerts, you're focused on that one message. Man, it's healing. It's good. Just us talking about it this morning downstairs about U2, and I was describing the moment where they went from this song, but then only played a minute and a half, and then it went to this, and then the Streets Had No Name started, and these lights hit, and you could feel the energy in the room just talking about it. And I just don't think that's going to be replicated with headphones and computer screens,
I
even
couldn't
virtual
agree
reality.
more. There's something about that congregational aspect of getting together with people who all have bought into a brand of sorts, right? Whether it is sports, religion, or music. And then, additionally, as I look at, the world right now and all the stratification and polarization, one of the things I've always loved about the concert business is everybody can get in an arena and enjoy a Sam Hunt, a Chris Stapleton. No one's looking over their shoulders going, I wonder if that guy's a Republican or a Democrat. You know what I mean? Like they're setting aside all of this sort of real world divisiveness bullshit and just uniting under the banner of something they all love and enjoy and appreciate. And it's one of the reasons why I believe the arts is going to pull us through all this divisiveness that we see in culture right now.
Yep. No,
but we got to get back at it.
Yeah, we're going to, I think when people get out in those spaces, forced to be close together, but having something to focus on and celebrate that's a shared thing. I think we miss that more than we even know we miss it. And yeah, over the past, probably say 6,000 years or more, music has brought that together. Music has been that part of our culture. And I think I don't want to get all Jordan Peterson or anything, but I think it's deep, deep, deep in our psyche. To listen to music, to feel it. And to me, there's no better way that we have figured out as humans to experience music than a sold out amphitheater on a Friday night up in the grass, me with 2 beers in my back pocket because I don't want to go back, and watching those lights go down right before somebody comes on and that energy kicks and everybody focuses and starts going. I've seen that a million times and it still gives me goosebumps. It's like it's that gag that works over and over again because people want it to. They want the magician to trick them. They want the comedian to tell a joke to make them laugh. They're there,
Right.
receptive for it.
They're complicit.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, I see exactly what you're saying. Back to the artist development side a little bit. One thing you said to me the first time we met on the green carpet at the Canadian Country Music Awards in Edmonton, Alberta.
I remember.
We were talking about content. We were talking about social media. We were talking about the effect on artist brands. And you said something that I'll never forget. You said, everybody says content is king. That's kind of half true. Great content is king. Meaningful content is king. And you were not, I wouldn't say critical, but observationally pointing out that there's this desire for artists sometimes to re-engage their fans over and over again in a much less meaningful way than they probably should. And I really admired that. And it made me think, and it reminded me that, yes, just because you have an Instagram account doesn't mean you need to post a story every 15 minutes. It's important to post things that matter and it will have much more impact. So how have you taken that philosophy into day-to-day management of your clients and what they do on their socials?
Oh gosh, I think first of all, it really depends on who they are individually. Because I think if you are trying to connect the authentic artist with the audience, and even your most ambiguous rock stars like Bono, he was still authentic. He's got a fake name, but I feel like I still know Bono. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Or I recently watched that great Coldplay documentary about the story of Coldplay, and you go, oh, Chris Martin is Coldplay. He's the rainbows. He's the light. He's that guy all the time. So you're hiding things, obviously, and you still want people to be a rock star. You still want them to be unique and just have aspects of their life that they don't show. But as long as those things are authentic, and for me, it's talking about, like to Dustin, it's talking about finding those moments in his life when he goes, whatever else does. Dust all day, normal do turkey hunting this. So feel manufacturing those things or putting those just banal, boring, regular things. Share the things that connect. If you get time to go hunting, if you're a big hunter and you get time to go hunting, that's a special time. That's what you love. That's the thing. Maybe everybody likes a Five Guys cheeseburger, but it's not special. It's not a unique thing that people connect with. So sharing every aspect of what we're doing on a daily basis, for me, unless you're a type of artist where that makes sense and your day-to-day life and who you're married to and your children become a part of your as an artist and you feel with that, you share your family life like you would on Facebook if not famous. If that works for you, that works for you. But you better be that type of artist where that's all time.
Right.
That makes sense? Your songs
Totally makes
those
sense.
people, their songs are probably about their family. So it fits the brand up and down. And so it's kind of tailor-made, I guess, for each artist.
Yeah, and I think too, social media in a strange way has ruined the mystique around some artist brands.
Sure.
I appreciate the accessibility, the relatability. As a fan, as a consumer, it's nice to check in with Dustin Lynch's Instagram, see what he's up to today, and many other artists. But there's a component of that where they can sometimes give away or relinquish their mystique as a celebrity.
Sure.
And depending on the artist, I would agree with you. Sometimes it works. It doesn't matter. But for some artists, it can almost work against them a little bit.
100%. I think it comes down to this kind of example. Like, if you're trying to look cool when you're on stage and when you're on the red carpet and when you're taking photos as an artist and when you're in music videos, and then you show at home yourself being not cool at all over and over and over again, then there's a separation. It's not authentic. I see that one is an act. And here's the deal, you don't have to be cool. Some of my favorite musicians aren't cool. They're just great. And so, there's always that beauty in watching a guy or a girl who's so confident and they're not cool, but they got their thing. They got their confidence. And so for me, it's that a lot of times. It's watching folks in our genre who dress up in a costume and then all they do all day on social media is reveal what's behind that costume. And it's like, how am I supposed to buy into one if you're showing me the polar opposite when you're off work? Um, that's key. I would rather someone like Sam all on, but he's not going to show much behind the scenes.
Yeah, what Sam is doing is very intentional. Can you still hear me, Brad? Hold on a sec. Oh, we just froze up there for a second. Are you still there, buddy?
Yeah, I lost you for just a minute. I
Yeah,
got you though.
yeah, that's all good. I can edit that out. That's not a problem.
No worries.
One of the other things as you're building, as we're talking about building out a digital brand and how an artist sort of portrays themselves on social media, um, you've also talked at times about once you identify a vision for the brand, for the artist, you have to be okay with the fact that you're not going to capture the entire market. You have to resign yourself to the
Sure.
reality that there's a good chance you're going to piss off 50% of the people. Like, there were a lot of people when Montevello first came out with Sam Hunt who loved that album. Obviously, it was a resounding success. But there were also a lot of people that were really concerned about where they thought that album might take the genre,
Sure.
right? And in your case, how have you been able to discern when your vision is on track and whether or not it needs to be brought back on track? Because sometimes, I'm sure that happens. You might doubt yourself or second guess yourself at some level.
Yeah, I think Sam's a great example. He uh, he dictates it. Like I think it goes back to yes, you have to be able to be okay with pissing off people or not putting things out that people are going to like and maybe putting things out that people hate. Um, but I think that's a byproduct of the original attitude that is that punk attitude that I grew up with. Sam probably hasn't heard a punk song, but man, he's a punk rocker. Like he just had the blood in him, even though he didn't. The music didn't of the '70s, '80s, '90s didn't come through him. He has that attitude, and so for him and for what we try to do at Homestead is it goes back to keeping it in that small group when you make it. And all we're trying to do is we want 2 or 3 or 4 people in our group to love it. That's the iron sharpen iron part of it. Does that make sense? Like
Totally.
musically, Sam and Zach and Josh Osborne and Shane McAnally and those guys, man, they just sit there and go back and forth on these songs and they know that's not good enough. Always brutal honesty, always input. And so for us, it's them getting the music right. Then it's us moving into the visuals and having those same kind of conversations and making something 2 or 3 times. And even if somebody put a lot of heart and soul in it, being able to go, hey, they've told me that's not the right move. Okay, let's throw it away. Let's build it again. But it's impressing that small core group of people that we all compete against. And then once it's accepted and lifted up out of that group, we don't care.
Right.
We don't care.
Yeah,
But
it's
we've
funny.
learned that that's where excellence comes from. Like that's where whatever type of success, and going back to the original part of the conversation with my dad, if we get it in that group and they love it, it doesn't matter if it goes number one for 3 weeks or if it dies at 15. We knew that was the play we wanted to run.
Right. Yeah, it's funny. Sam Hunt is sort of like a polite version of Henry Rollins, right? Like
Sure,
he's left to
sure.
center. He decides what he wants to do. He's got a vision, but he's also super charismatic and affable as
Mhm.
well. But there's definitely a punk sensibility to
Oh,
him, and
dude,
I'm
he's the
glad you
real
brought that
deal.
up.
He's the real deal. He's a brilliant dude, but he's so clean and simple, man. The ego, it's not on him, and all the stuff that most of the people are chasing, he doesn't think about. He lives a simple life. It's awesome. It's admirable, but it also leaves him the ability to be very agile. He knows the line of where the gains of success or any momentum or anything, he knows where that line would be where he would have to give up his core beliefs, and he won't even get close to it. He
Yeah,
won't sleep well at night.
he's got a bit of like a reluctant messiah complex to him.
Hmm.
In the few
Hmm.
times that I've met him and interacted with him, he loves what he does, but at the same time, if it all went away tomorrow, you can tell it wouldn't really affect his ego or his identity.
Sure, sure.
Now, he must be a bit of a unique case for you, right? Like a lot of artists are programmed and conditioned to want to play to the adulation of the marketplace. Um, is Sam unique in that space, or do some of the other artists that you work with also replicate that same set of entrenched values, and they're willing to have a vision for what they want no matter what?
Sure, I think all of them are. I think that's kind of one of the binding factors of being under the Homestead roof, or along with Homestead. Um, we've got, when you're in town next, you need to come by the office. But we've got
Definitely.
our office looks like there's not a single image of any band or artist that we work with. There's no records. There's no plaques or nothing. It's all just big black and white pictures. It looks like a museum, but it's all World War I, World War II, inventors, radicals, skaters, punk rockers, Amelia Earhart next to Tony Hawk. You know, but it's all that group of people that just knew what they wanted to do authentically, that one thing, and they were going to do it. And I'm trying to be that guy that can help. Hey, you want to fly around the world? Well, I'll help you figure out how to do it. It sounds crazy, you might die, but I'll help you figure out how to do it. So it's taken everybody's dream and vision, and the commonality under Homestead is that we're just going to stick to that and only care about that. So for Sam, it's one thing. For Dustin, it is Dustin, everything Dustin does so well, from the music to the video liners. He's a great showman and a talker. But when it comes down to it, he wants to sell out arenas. He is a entertainer, in the line of the greats, from Kenny Chesney to Keith to Luke, and people he's played with and learned from. So for us, when we make decisions, it's how are we connecting those dots to play bigger and better shows, because that's his goal. And so other people were trying to figure out how to, you know, scratch this creative itch and follow this vibe for the next batch of songs. Great, let's go down that road. But it's never what are people doing right now and how do we fit into that.
Right.
It's what do you want to do and how do we fit that into, the marketplace.
And interestingly enough, I mean, you were with Sam before he'd even performed a live show. You were with him from inception, essentially. You came along and started working with Dustin when he was, I think, 5 or 6 number ones in at
Hmm.
that point. You know,
Yep.
he'd been around for a bit. Um, Tell me a little bit about the difference in your world of working with an artist that you're working with from the ground up, and all the learning curves and everything that goes with that, versus taking someone on who's already doing respectable business in the marketplace and
Sure.
has a bit of a pedigree at radio. Like that must have been quite the adjustment for you.
No, it was great. It was really great. And when I came with Sam, I was so lucky and blessed. He had been a phenomenal songwriter. He had already had success with number ones with Kenny Chesney and Billy
Keith Urban.
Currington, and yeah, and he was playing the writers rounds, and he was awesome. And when he started recording as an artist, I met him to start taking his picture and do some creative stuff for him. And then we just kind of bonded together. So that entire ride, beyond being really insane, just because it's so rare that something takes off that quickly, that big. But that ride, I didn't know anything. I wasn't a manager. I was a photographer, videographer, graphic designer, kind of road on and off road guy, just a general worker. And so the SAM experience gave me like a master's degree in how to do that. It was hardcore 4 or 5 years of learning how to do it. And I put a little team together and I partnered with Redlight and I got my feet under me. And so bringing Dustin and him asking me to come on his team, it was just lining it up right next to Sam. We were doing the same stuff. We're going to the ACMs. Now I got 2 artists at the ACMs. We're talking to radio. Okay, let's talk about this artist and let's talk about that artist. So it was a lot of the same pieces. And so they just kind of ran parallel. Now, fast forward to Connor Smith, who's my young artist on Big Machine, who we signed. You've met him. We signed him when he was 16. He's now 20. He signed a Big Machine almost 2 years ago. Literally developing that out of high school and into a publishing deal and into a record deal, photos, live shows, the whole thing. It's just different now because I know what we're going for. Like with Sam, I know what we were going for. And then when it was Sam Dustin, it was just 2 acts that both had 6 number ones, which that's its own thing. You're just really managing the momentum. But to learn how to build the momentum with these new acts that I've got, it's great because it's the same steps I did with Sam, but a little slower. And I know what I'm doing now. And I've got a great team around me. So it's not as scary. I don't feel like as much of it has to do with luck. A lot of Sam Hunt just felt insane. Like we were in places where I knew I didn't talk us into that place, or I didn't know what we were doing, but we were all just kind of hanging out and drinking the beer and going on TV when you need to go on TV. Now it's easier to have a game plan because we know how to have we build these things called manifestos at Homestead, and we've always got one for each artist. And I text them out every once in a while, the artist, and they're 2 or 3 pages. But they are basically the 15-month plan, always a 15-month plan. And the first 2 weeks of it might have days and times and a lot of minutia. Second page goes into a month. Then it goes into a 4-month period. Then it starts stretching out even more. But we've got everything that even our dreams are on there. Hey, we'd love to have Connor on New Faces CRS 2022 February. Well, it's been on our manifesto for 6 months. So we run those things out, and to be able to have those for the whole team, the label, the management company, the artist, we've all got our goals. That's different than we've ever been able to do before.
So do you generate those manifestos generally in collaboration with the artist for the most part, or is it sort of like, this is what we think you are capable of? I guess it would depend on the client, wouldn't it?
It does, but a lot of times we draw them up, and then the TBDs is the music, because I can't do anything with the music. I can't make it. I don't know how to write it or record it. It's the most important thing. So for us, it's, hey, we think this would be a really great rollout with these tickets going on sale at this time and this award show at this time, and really rolling it all out. And knowing where your artist is, like if they've got a handful of songs, a lot of times artists want to sit there and go, well, I got 4, but let me get 5 and then we'll look at what we got. Then we'll game plan. But if you can come to them and say, hey, we got a plan laid out here. And man, if you could give us 1 song on this date, and it has the hand-in dates and when it comes out, when the artwork's due. And if you go, hey, if you could hit 1 here, 2 here, 1 here, you see how this release lines up with this announce and on sale and this award show. And so you kind of make a best case scenario. And if you line it up the right way with your artist, they want that because it gives them endpoints. It gives them goals to go, okay, now that I see a reason to put this one out, then these 2, then this one, and then the record, it allows them to kind of finish things up a little quicker.
Yeah, it's way easier for them to stay on track with some specificity to, when you get that specific and that systematic, because they see the end goal. They see
Hmm.
the opportunities that will present themselves if they stick to the plan. So
And how it
I
fits
totally
into
get
the
that.
larger marketplace, like
Right.
reminding them that, hey, this is the end of this voting zone, or, this is when you're going to be out in Vegas doing this TV show. We could put the single out that day and shoot the video over here. So just tying it into the larger picture, so they're not just the days of sitting gone off the grid making a record to then come out and launch are gone. And
Right.
so to keep people motivated to pepper out music all year round and then clump it together as a record, you got to give them those stepping stones in that outline.
What do you think the future looks like for the album? Is it coming back?
I think it's going to be a niche thing. I think it's going to be like vinyl is nowadays, where if people want to put them out, but honestly, they're just not needed anymore. And I don't want to get any grief from people that I love them. I love my albums. I got classic albums. I love the art of it. But I think the younger generations are just coming up and they're going to eat that idea alive because they don't have that connection to those albums. And to to build the best momentum, I think for almost any level career in any genre, putting 10 or 12 songs out at one time is not the future. Now, here's what I love. I think the audience wants more music and I want to put more music out. It helps the touring, helps everything. So if we can get the audience and the artists used to, 6 to 10 songs a year, every year, maybe 12 one year, great. Good.
Yes.
They don't
And
have
you
they
can be
don't
so much more creatively agile in that space too
totally.
when you're working single to single. If you're putting an album together, you might have a vision for that album. By
Mhm.
the time you finish it, trends may have changed in the format
Yep.
to a point where it doesn't make as much sense. Where, if you get a great song out and it's top 20, and then you come across a monster career hit, you can turn that around and have it out in 3 months.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah. No, I see
And
the
and you're
benefits
you're
of that for sure.
you're also putting out your it's giving a lot more praise to B-sides and to album tracks that people, when you put 10 or 12 songs out, man, it's hard to ingest the entire thing unless it's a classic record. But if you're popping songs out every once in a while and packaging them together in two or one, it allows you to enjoy, even if it's only for a little life of a week while it's streaming and on some playlist, or 2 weeks, or a summer song. Like now, Dustin's Dustin's got some songs that we're literally writing and recording for specific seasons. Of, hey, let's write. He's got a song called Tequila on a Boat coming out in a few weeks that is made to drink on a lake. And then he's got a song coming out during hunting season that's specifically a story about that. That wouldn't have been doable if it was just an album track.
Right. Yeah, you can almost create themes that follow certain consumer trends,
Sure,
right?
and they're
Including the
needed on those
seasons.
playlists,
Right. Right,
you know.
exactly. So it's adapting the recording plan to the realities of the marketplace rather than trying to dictate it from the mountaintop.
He didn't write the song for the playlist, but when he wrote it, we've been sitting on it for a year and a half. When he wrote it, we were like, "Oh wait, that one's going to come out this time." It's been on the manifesto forever, but it was made. It was just made as a great song, but keeping it and utilizing it in a certain way to get the most out of it, as opposed to just throwing it on a record. That's new.
Now, let's talk a little bit about your growth in this business because you've had Homestead, you worked alongside Redlight, you sort of went to Corn Capshaw University for a number
Sure,
of years, and
sure.
now you're back on your own. Tell us a little bit about the value of being affiliated with Redlight and how that helped accelerate your learning process in this business.
Oh gosh, like Corin still does to this day, because we're still together, even though I've got this office here, and I'm kind of an island. We're partners, Corn and I. When I first came up, I didn't know anything. I didn't have a team member. I didn't know anybody at Live Nation. I didn't know about ticket counts. I didn't know anybody any of that stuff. So being able to tap in with Corin and his team of people there that can teach you branding and Live Nation and Ticketmaster and all of that kind of stuff. They taught me the just the basics, the ground floor of how to run a business. It doesn't matter what your artist level is, where they are at the radio. This is how the business is run. Just put them in one of these categories, because he's had such success at every level. So getting, first of all, I wouldn't have been able to deliver for Sam and for Dustin up front once it really took off to the 7-figure plus level. I couldn't have carried that ball. So to have them carry that ball with me and teach me, and then him allowing me to form my own little island inside of that and hire my own people. And my people worked alongside their people, and they still do, but some of them just got the task. And then now that's my guy that does that full time. And so he was always open to just allowing our company to grow and giving us anything we needed to help it grow. And when I wanted to turn off little aspects of the company for efficiency reasons, he went, great, good for you. Now you got that person doing it yourself. And still to this day, and being able to sit and learn how to, he taught me so much about negotiating contracts, but negotiating long-term, long business, long game contracts. I don't know if I've ever told you this, but it's one of my favorite metaphors that he talked about, and he definitely didn't put it exactly this way, but it was the general idea that a lot of people will come in, and when there's a deal put on the table, especially if they're new in the business and they think that's their one and only deal they're going to get, they look at the deal as a pie. And if you know what you're doing and you have experience and you're confident and you feel good on the playing field, you can look at that pie and go, man, I probably deserve 23%. I would be happy with 23%. That's where I want to land. That'd be good. You should go in and just go, guys, I'm going to take 23%. Because if you sit and you go, maybe I can fight for 7% more and get 30. And you really start fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting and negotiating and going back and forth, what you're not doing is going to the next pie and going, I'll take 30% of that one. I'll take 6% of that one. I'll take 15% of that one. And a lot of times, if you fight for that extra little percent, you can muddy the water. You can unmotivate the person you're doing business with. He taught me that there's types of deals that are one-off deals that you're working for your client, and you do go in there and try and get the highest percentage because it's a zero-sum negotiation. But the majority, 95% of the deals in our business are not a zero-sum negotiation. They're long-term business deals. And so you want to be able to cut that deal that everybody, when the pie's done, goes, boy, I like Jim. I like Brad. Let's do another pie with them.
Right. It's almost like, to springboard off your analogy, rather than fighting for a bigger piece of the pie, you're buying an interest in the bakery, right?
it.
You're going to get a piece of every pie, right? Moving forward.
Sure.
And I agree. I think if there were mistakes I made early on in this game, it was being too aggressive, not understanding that if you want commitment from your partner, the deal has to be reciprocal. There has to be reciprocity. They have to win too, to some degree. Because if they don't, you're not going to be a priority. They're going to sign somebody else who's going to give them a bigger piece of the pie, and they're going to deprioritize you and your client by virtue of just realizing they can't make any money.
Yep. And the long value of trust, of experience, of I know what I'm getting when I do a deal with Jim. I know where it's going to be. So, for me, that's a big deal with all the vendors that we work with our artists, from touring to merch and all those type of things. We balance out the price that we can get with the communication, loyalty, trust. That has a value too. And I think maybe in my early management days, I looked at that price and I looked at the new kid coming in to undercut somebody, and we can get a better deal over here. But when the shit hit the fan and we needed something done, they dropped the ball. And so there's that benefit of ease of knowing, hey, I know that these people have it. They're going. I don't need to negotiate a new price with them. In our larger business, it's good for us to go with them because they're long term. They're going to cover our ass. That's been a learning thing for me too.
Yeah, it's not an uncommon story. Let's talk a little bit about brand partnerships because you were able to pull off some big ones early with Sam. Bose being one that was like, I mean, that came along at a time where it almost felt like in some circles he may not have been ready for it, but you guys were able to pull off a mutually reciprocal deal. What are you looking for in terms of brand partnerships with your clients?
Gosh, we've been blessed that Redlight and Corin have a connection to a company called New Era, a guy named Matt Ringel and a woman named Donna McQueen. They're our branding people at Redlight. And Matt is just a rock star, a total rock star, beyond just being like 20 years, 25 years experience and all the relationships. And, he puts together the concerts at the Super Bowl backstage with Shaq and Gronk and those beach parties. And he does the coolest level stuff. But he also really digs into the artist and the team around the artist who can execute it. Because he taught me that, man, you can take some hype in a song or an artist, and then you can take a big brand and a check and shove them together. And in the end, the check moves from one account to the next. But if it doesn't feel good for the brand, they're not going to call back to the artist. They're not going to hit the middleman, the brand guy either. And if it looks stupid or crappy or cheap or cheesy, it does so much damage to the artist. So when you can find those brands that are willing to communicate, and if you can communicate with them, I think in a way to allow them to know, here's our parameters, here's what we want to deliver. Because in the end, I've always been convinced that what they're buying into is not just the name or the brand of the artist that we represent, but they're buying into our connection that we've built, the artist connection. I say the artist connection that they've built with their fan through all the different pieces. And so we built the bridge to the fan. They just want to come and be part of it or walk across it, put a sticker on it. And so if you
And they want access to the artist consumer base.
Totally. And the best way to access them is in a way that feels, smells, and tastes like the regular communication line that the artist has with the audience. I think the mistake is when people come in and put a side or a different level of communication that the artist never does to the fan. And then it just feels inauthentic or it feels fake. It feels like an ad. So for us, we've always kept it in. That sounds kind of abstract, but we've kept it inside of those parallels of, does it feel cool? Do we want to do it? Like for Bose, it was, the video commercial pieces that they wanted were what they wanted. That's what their branding company came up with and said, hey, we've got this much for these. We're looking for these things. And we wanted to throw a free street concert on the 1-year anniversary of Montevallo downtown, announced the day before. 12,000 people showed up, and I had a hard budget cost for the stage, the lighting, all the stuff. And so I said, well, I need this much. Wasn't even a round number to do this, and you can put your stuff all over it, and then we'll do those things too. And that totally made sense because we got something that was authentic to us and what we wanted to do. And if they're going to make a little documentary, why not make a documentary about something that we really did as opposed to doing a shoot day where we go fake something for a day? So those multiplied when those come about. When Bud Light calls and says, hey, do you want to do a private concert on the beach for 1,000 people with Lil Wayne, Dashboard Confessional, and Sam? Yeah, that sounds fun. Let's go do that. So as long as they fit in that, and we've turned down for Dustin and Sam and everybody, we've turned down plenty that have come in that just didn't feel right, didn't feel like it would fit in our line of communication.
Yeah, there's something about the right synergy, right? And you can just feel it. It's like this is going to look cool. I feel like it's going to move the needle both for my client and the brand.
Yep.
And we're going to get a nice little paycheck out of it.
Sure.
And the ones that you're doing for the money or that you can feel is just all about the money, you just know, man.
Yep.
You can just feel it. It's like this the brand's not going to be happy. My client's going to be pissed at the end of the day.
And you
I'm going
can't
to
take it
counsel.
back.
No,
You can't,
no,
whatever that
it's out there.
yeah, whatever that crap is out there that's mediocre and half-ass and for the check. If you think it's for the check, if you feel that as an artist and a team, man, the audience is going to smell it. At least the segment of the audience that you want to influence. If you're going to influence, that little circle that we talk about, impressing each other and then putting it out. We know there's other little circles out there that we want those guys and girls to get it. Man, they smell that too.
Yeah.
They're just as smart, if not smarter, than the 4 or 5 guys and girls that we, brainstorm everything around here at the office.
It's a strange thing. There's almost, I mean, the concept of cool is subjective to a degree, but it has a consensus to it.
Here's the
It's
deal.
like,
Somebody told me that once, and I won't say. It was the head of a record label. And I was leaving a meeting very early in my career. And they said, man, great meeting. Lots of good info there. But hey, one suggestion. You were, what did he say? You were trying to prove your point by saying things were cool. And everybody's cool is different. And I went, yeah, but have you ever heard Led Zeppelin or seen a picture of James Dean? Like, there's that level that is, you could take a picture of James Dean to a 5-year-old kid in China right now, and he would think he looked cool. So
totally.
there's
a
that
consensus.
too.
Yeah. Yeah. There's something about it that just, it's not quite in our DNA, but it might be, where it's like certain things mean danger, certain things mean excitement, certain things mean different things to different people. But there's something about the concept of cool, the concept of something that works, that just, it doesn't feel as subjective. And I'm glad you told that story, because I think that speaks to that point perfectly.
Well, it's
So what are the
confidence,
things?
man.
Yeah,
It's inner
maybe
confidence.
that's part of it, right?
That's why it can belong to anybody. It's not a gender thing or a hierarchy thing or a beautiful thing. None of that. It's all that confidence that as human beings, we're also insecure. We're always questioning things, that when you see something bold and confident, man, that's what's in our DNA, is we want to follow that.
Yes. Dwight Yoakam exemplifies that, right? Like, he's a good example of somebody who, it's not like he's built like Sam Hunt.
Sure.
He's not nearly as handsome. He's got his peccadillos, but man, you get that guy on stage cranking through a song like Fast as You, and you cannot deny the cool. It's just there, What are the things outside of the business that light your fire, that initiate your passion? What do you love outside of what you obviously have such a passion for that you do daily?
It's funny. It's somewhat new, but it's consuming. And it's being outside, like in the woods, from even in my yard of gardening and yard work, to being out in the woods and building things and cutting things down. It's like I'm 46 now, and I feel like I'm finding a new passion by reverting back to when I was very young and grew up in the South and lived near woods and would just take off with my friends in the woods all day and build forts and do stuff. And I was getting into it. I bought my wife and I bought and built a house a few years ago. And we have 6 acres of woods. We're at the end of a little cul-de-sac, and it's beautiful. But I started getting into it maybe a year and a half before COVID, just really working in the yard a lot and getting a lot done. And then when COVID hit, I just became obsessed, and it brought me back in. It saved me. We're now looking at 107 acres, 35, 40 minutes out of town. And that's the goal of building a little place out there. And I just got obsessed with it, and I love it. I love it. My wife laughs so hard.
There's something to be said for manual labor, and to a degree, it's almost a meditative state. If you can do something where you've got to pay some attention, I mean, I'm not talking about, floating off into outer space where you're swinging an axe, but if you're doing something that is steady, like weeding a garden, for example, you can think, You
Yep.
can meditate in that space effectively, and it really frees up your mind while engaging your body. And so I'm a big fan of that too. It's so good to hear that, and it doesn't shock me at all.
I think too, what I really got out of it was obviously COVID hit everybody differently. We all kind of had to come to some realizations with ourselves and with our lives, and where I was at with the momentum and the movement, that stillness was something I hadn't had for a long time. And I realized that what I had been longing for was something that I could do that didn't need me to sell it, talk to it, motivate it, influence it, pair it up. Um, it was just something that I could do all day. And at the end of the day, I might be the only person that looks up in that corner and sees that all that wood is stacked over there or this is here. But it's that just moving a pile of bricks from here to there. And at the end of the day, you're tired and you did something. I think the abstraction of the music business, the constant, you talk about how do you develop a young artist for 4 years and have that confidence before you even try to swing at the plate. That's a lot of abstraction. It's just motivation. It's just keeping everybody going. And I love doing that. But when you can also just take this pile of bricks and move it over there, and you look at it and go, I did that today. I'm going to crack a beer and go sit on the back porch. Man, there's a value to that I think we've lost a lot as we move into condos and cities and all that kind of stuff.
Man, I couldn't agree more. When I was a kid, one of my favorite things to do was fencing. We had 16 sections of land, cattle ranch, 1,000 head of cattle, lots of fencing to take care of those cat. But there was something about standing there at the end of a 12 or 14-hour day and looking at a mile of fence and going, I did that. Like
Yep.
today, I did that. Right.
Yep.
And you're right. In our business, it's a lot of abstraction, a lot of intangibles, a lot of feeling it, knowing ultimately that you're moving things forward, but not really seeing the effects of it day in and day out.
Sure.
And so I think what you're describing there gives you some balance. And I'm so grateful you were able to find that during this time. What is next for you? I mean, you've done so incredibly well in this business. Where do you want to end up in the next decade?
Really, I want to, especially coming out of COVID and kind of rebuilding, getting a fresh start. I want to work on my, gosh, I would probably call it my fourth chapter, third or fourth chapter. Um, like I said, I'm 46, and I probably am not going to be one of these guys that's here going to the award shows when I'm 70 something. Like I love it, and I love being a part of it now. I love being in the stream of the Nashville music business, and I feel blessed every day. But I know that my time's going to come, and that there's people coming behind me. And so I think it's being able to continue to invest in my team and in their lives and their mortgages and families. And I'm excited about going to the local hospital to see my employees' new kids when they're born. I want to be that dude and have them come swim in the pool. I'm ready to be that uncle/granddad guy. And so I'm hungry. I'm excited for what I want to do, but it's now turning into what we want to do. It's for more than just me. I kind of at the COVID break allowed me to sit back and realize that I checked off more boxes than I ever thought I'd be able to check off. Starting a band when I was 14 and starting to put shows on when I was 15 in 1990 in my parents' garage, and screen printing merch, and going to college for music business and putting on concerts like you back in the day. I mean, all of it. And I was able to kind of sit and go, man, I did a lot. And with Sam and with Dustin, there's been Grammys and award shows and sold out shows. And so it gave me time to kind of sit and go, okay, I don't want to chase that anymore. Now, the people that I work with, the people that I'm around, they haven't tasted that yet. It's not going to taste as sweet to me the second time. I want them to get in there and taste it. So how do we keep this going so that they can have the same experiences in their 30s and early 40s that I had, and I'll be in my late 40s and mid 50s? And I think we're going to build a system where I'm going to be able to, hopefully in the years to come, spend more time out on the land, chopping trees down or hanging out with, I want donkeys and chickens and all that stuff, while I'm still part of the music business. So it's funny, our 15-month manifesto we do for all our acts. I'm working on my 15-year manifesto for Homestead and for me personally.
I love it, man. You were born to mentor people.
I
Very
love it.
charismatic, and this is a compliment, but you could have been a cult leader.
Sure.
You could have pulled that off. I'm
Still
glad you
time,
didn't go
bro.
that direction.
Still time. Okay.
We'll check that manifesto next time I'm in
Yeah.
Nashville and see what it looks like. Thanks for taking the time to do this today, man.
Brother.
I'm such a fan and love working with you on the chances that we've had to do that, and look forward to more. And I think a lot of artists who are getting into the business or been in it for a while are going to get a lot of value out of everything you said. So thanks again for doing this.
Jim, good seeing you, brother. I can't wait to see you face to face.
I'm looking forward to it too. Thanks again.
All right, be good.